Hello, I'm Rachel Wise, and this presentation includes a look at research-based instructional strategies for social studies. In addition to providing the best practices for this subject area, I'll also include suggestions for classroom strategies. As Michelle Herzog explains in her article, The Links Between the C3 Framework and the NCSS National Curriculum Standards for Social Studies, the College, Career, and Civic Life, or C3 framework, was created from a 3-year effort to enhance social studies state standards. It essentially is an inquiry-based chart to frame the way students learn social studies content. The C3 framework includes 4 dimensions seen here, and directly linked to the National Curriculum Standards for Social Studies, a framework for teaching, learning, and the assessment, published by NCS in 2010. The learning expectations of the national standards focus on purposes, questions for exploration, knowledge, processes, and products. You can see the connections between the C3 framework and the NCSS national standards here. According to the National Council for the Social Studies, or NCSS, there are essential skills and strategies required for students to be successful in social studies. Research-based literacy strategies can assist students in comprehending the variety of informational text and written sources they will encounter. For example, reviewing vocabulary before and during units is essential in this content area. Teachers can use KWL charts or quick surveys to determine students' prior knowledge. The ability to decipher text features is also important to help students gather information from sources other than written text. Research also shows the use of visual representations helps students understand content as well. After a lesson, jotting down notes to summarize what has been learned is also most beneficial. In addition to teaching general literacy strategies, educators must also acknowledge key learning strategies that directly relate to learning social studies content. First, decision-making allows students to identify a situation and collect factual information needed to make a decision. Based on the collected data, students must determine various courses of action before taking action to implement their decision, and then further examine the consequences. Inquiry learning is a powerful way to increase engagement. By allowing students to ask complex questions, investigate and explore their own understandings on a subject, and then organize their ideas to communicate to others, we're promoting more student ownership in the learning process. Issue analysis is another unique skill set for the social studies student. They must be able to define an issue and determine opposing positions. After finding information to support both sides, they must defend and justify a position and then persuade others to join in their thinking. Problem-based learning incorporates real-world problems into the classroom and requires students to collaborate on a problem, identify possible solutions, and present those solutions with supporting documentation. Last, it's important for educators to incorporate service and community learning experiences so that students can work in collaboration with stakeholders outside of the school in order to build partnerships and learn how to make the community a better place. All of these key learning strategies are essential when teaching social studies students. NCSS also recommends instilling valuable critical thinking skills so students may learn to reflect on content, form judgments based on evidence, and gain knowledge through reading, observations, and experiences. To practice critical thinking skills, students must be able to conduct research, which begins with the ability to locate information. Information may be located through the library or in an online database. Next, students must explore these sources of information by using relevant parts of the text, evaluating various types of media such as print, audio, electronic, and visual, and interpreting these sources. Once they can organize the information into usable forms, students must then interpret it, showing relationships between parts, inferring and interpreting points of view, and predicting outcomes. Finally, they must analyze the information, separating it into major components, and then synthesize it by offering proposals or a reinterpretation of events. To conclude their research, students must communicate, both orally and in writing, and then evaluate the validity and credibility of the information. Finally, the National Council of the Social Studies, or NCSS, also advocates for inclusion of personal interaction and civic engagement strategies to help students become competent and responsible citizens. Strategies for personal interaction include promoting personal beliefs and convictions, demonstrating self-direction, and adjusting one's own behavior to work well in groups. In addition, it is important students are able to contribute to a positive climate in a group setting and work towards common group goals. Strategies include ways for students to delegate roles, compromise and debate differences in a respectful way, and appreciate the diverse perspective of group members. As for civic engagement, strategies seek to convey the importance of democracy and incorporate ways to promote meaningful dialogue with others who have contrasting perspectives. Civic engagement strategies include promotion of public speaking, petitioning and protesting, voting, expressing concern for the rights of others, and ultimately, the belief in the capacity to make a difference. This concludes the National Council for the Social Studies general methodology for the teaching of this subject area. The best practices for teaching social studies has continued to be an ongoing debate between experts in the field. According to Zimmelman, Daniels, and Hyde in 1993, various commissions and reports have differed considerably in their approaches, and a unanimous progressive consensus has not emerged in the social studies to the degree that it has in science, math, and literacy. Some value content over process and seek ways to cover as much material as possible in a short amount of time, while others stress more broad themes and habits of mind. The following best practices are derived from recent national reports on teaching social studies shared in the book Best Practice: New Standards for Teaching Learning in America's Schools, which includes research from the National Center for History in the Schools Lessons from History Report, the article Charting a Course, Social Studies for the 21st Century, and the frameworks offered by the National Council for Social Studies. One thing all reports agree upon is that social studies is meant to prepare students for a democratic citizenship, and that active engagement is necessary to a good classroom. Differentiation, as defined by the Glossary of Education Reform, refers to a wide variety of teaching techniques and lesson adaptations that educators use to instruct a diverse group of students with diverse learning needs in the same course, classroom, or learning environment. Teachers use different instructional methods to help students master essential knowledge, concepts, and skills. One differentiation strategy includes giving students regular opportunities to investigate topics in depth and participate in the choosing of these topics. Classroom strategies include providing numerous news ELA articles for students to select, read, analyze, and then share with each other, teaching in the form of thematic units to increase engagement, or planning collaborative lessons with a librarian to encourage research or inquiry into the selected unit topics. Remember, social studies is meant to prepare students for democratic citizenship, and being able to make decisions and take ownership in the learning process is central to this goal. Another strategy includes teaching should involve exploration of open questions that challenge students' thinking. Some strategies include generate questions that invite discussion. You've got to get those students talking and thinking together. Incorporating group discussions, including learning logs to track what they've been learning, stick up some wall charts to get them engaged in writing, and then, of course, follow up with reports to summarize what they've learned. Remember, it's important to first teach your students to respect one another's ideas and not ridicule each other for sharing their thoughts with the class. As described in the Charting the Course report, content knowledge from social studies should not be treated merely as received knowledge to be accepted and memorized, but as the means through which open and vital questions may be explored and confronted. Another way to incorporate differentiation is to involve students in independent inquiry as well as collaborative learning to build skills and habits needed for lifelong responsible learning. Some strategies include having more of a workshop structure in your classroom. Therefore, students are working on their individual choice of research, and the teacher bounces from one to the next, having small mini one-on-one conferences. This works really well for social studies in heterogeneous classes and groups. Keep in mind, it may be helpful to teach students how to work in collaborative groups and assign roles for each participant. Because some students may prefer one way over another, it's best to incorporate a balance of individual work and group work to meet the needs of all learners and push them beyond their comfort zone. Another best practice for differentiation is including students in reading, writing, observing, discussing, and debating, ensuring their active participation in learning. Now, I know what you're thinking. You don't have to worry. Having students read and write in class doesn't mean you have to spend days drafting essays. It could simply be adding a quick informal assessments to determine their understanding throughout the lesson. Some classroom strategies include maybe just writing for 2 minutes to recall a previous lesson or to wrap up at the end of class. You could be pausing in the middle of something you've just shared to have a think, pair, share with a partner nearby. Or it could just be using a small note card to reflect on what they were learning or list questions after they've finished class. In addition, a class debate is great for ensuring active participation or role play and dramatization. Incorporating a variety of strategies other than lecturing and quizzing will increase student participation and ultimately positively affect their achievement. Here are a few more strategies to use when differentiating your lessons to scaffold lessons for students with special needs, English language learners, or to extend the rigor for those students who need more challenge. First, the use of leveled text meets the needs for students for remediation as well as extension opportunities. For example, teachers using online databases for research, like Encyclopedia Britannica, can select from 3 reading levels to implement with their students. In addition, there is leveled text available through the news ELA articles, or even just through the social studies textbook offered online. Not only does this help students on a lower reading level than their peers, it also helps to increase the level of content available for those high-achieving students. Pairing students up in heterogeneous groups meets the needs of those in need of additional support by pairing them with someone who understands the material better. In addition, research shows this technique aids the advanced learner as well by giving them the opportunity to explain what they know, essentially gaining a greater depth of knowledge. As we've previously discussed, previewing vocabulary and having students create dramatizations of historical events are great ways to differentiate for your ELLs. When possible, pair the vocabulary pictures with pictures or diagrams to better help the ELL students understand the material. Cloze reading or cloze notes is an instructional strategy where users are required to fill in the blanks within a passage with correct words from a word bank. It is another way to assess a student's understanding of vocabulary. It can also be used to help students study for an assessment. Some students may even be able to create their own study guides using cloze reading processes. It is most definitely helpful for those requiring more support to take notes in this format so they can listen more to the teacher explain the material being taught rather than stressing to write down every word on the organizer. Choice boards are an excellent way to extend the learning of those students ready to show what they know in more depth. Teachers create choice boards by selecting activities with varying depths of knowledge. Some boxes on the organizer may require the student to simply recall information, while other boxes might require the student to apply what they've learned to create a new product. The possibilities are endless when it comes to designing choice boards for instruction. It also frees up some of the teacher's time to work more closely in those small groups with students in need of more support. These are just a few more additional ways to differentiate instruction to meet the needs of the students in your class. In his TEDx video, Jeffrey DeSources describes culturally responsive teaching as a pedagogy that recognizes the importance of infusing the students' cultural references in all of their learning. Examples of this is having authentic conversations with our students. In addition, trying not to blend students together, but allowing them to express their own cultural identities. One way to include culturally responsive instruction is to involve active participation in the classroom and the wider community. Students need to reach beyond the classroom to really extend their learning, and they can do this with a little help and extra planning from the teacher to really enrich the culture around them. Some strategies include drafting letters or writing proposals about things that matter to them. Students can seek out actual changes in the school and community. They can invite diverse community members to share their expertise on various subjects that they're learning, or they can serve on student committees throughout the school. It's important for students to also research their community history to gain more understanding of their location. Another best practice to be more culturally responsive is to build upon students' prior knowledge of their lives and communities. This may look like interviewing parents or neighbors or community members about events going on or their past experiences. It could just be investigating the student's own heritage by going home and asking their parents to tell them more about themselves, or by using something like Ancestry.com on the computer to learn more about their own heritage. You need to make the classroom comfortable for all learners. You can do this by showing interest in your students and showing them that you care about each individual child. In addition, you could invite guest speakers, and if they can't come visit the school, you could do it virtually through Skype or another online format. In addition, you need to use learning inventories so you can adapt your teaching styles to meet the students' needs. According to Zimmelman, Daniels, and Hyde, social studies should explore a full variety of cultures found in America, including students' own backgrounds and understandings of other cultures' approaches to various social studies concepts. Some strategies to do this may include creative writing prompts, incorporating a different perspective of historical events, having students share about their own heritage that they've researched, using writing prompts or word problems with a variety of cultural references and names, attending virtual field trips, or even just field trips getting them outside of the classroom. One of my favorite virtual field trip experiences is using Google Expeditions app, and you can literally go anywhere in the world, whether it's on land, in space, or under the ocean. Relevant analogies can be used also, so they can explore situations relevant to their own life and create analogies with those things that they're learning in history, as well as a strategy called philosophical chairs. This shares multiple perspectives and encourages critical thinking by having students move to a set of chairs describing their belief in a topic and whether they agree, disagree, or are temporarily undecided. Let's investigate further by examining the 8th grade Georgia Studies curriculum. More specifically, let's zoom in on the history standard. Strategies for teaching history, according to Frederick Risinger in 2011, include infusing the arts to teach content, using narrative to tell a story, making connections between topics and across time in order to show cause and effect for students, and of course, incorporating a lot of writing. Research using primary and secondary sources is also greatly beneficial in teaching history, and including DBQs, or document-based questions. As stated by Zimmelman, Daniels, and Hyde, social studies evaluation must reflect the importance of students' thinking and their preparation to be lifelong, responsible citizens, rather than rewarding memorization of decontextualized facts. This means, rather than just giving multiple choice assessment all the time, your test must include more reflective dialogue between the teacher and student. In addition, to make it even more powerful, students should be engaged and help set the criteria for evaluation for the most effective results. Let's zoom into the history unit a little bit further and study the civil rights. One standard, SS8 H11, says, evaluate the role of Georgia in the modern civil rights movement. To begin the civil rights unit, teachers need to start by sharing the big ideas or the enduring understandings with students. In addition, it's helpful to cover the essential questions that students are expected to know by the end of the unit. In this case, how does conflict cause change, and how can change designed to help society also harm society? As we learned previously, it helps to instruct on the vocabulary before starting the lesson, as well as during the unit. Here are the key vocabulary words that are going to be essential in the civil rights unit. Here are some ways to put those best practices for teaching history to work. First, we can infuse the arts by having students analyze a political cartoon and describe what historical evidence is present in the piece of art, or play music from the 1960s as students enter the classroom or complete some writing. In addition, you could have students compare and contrast Martin Luther King Jr. and John Lewis to incorporate creative writing through poetry using the two resources provided. Another option, invite students to create a wanted poster, searching for the missing Lester Maddox. And even more engaging, show them a very powerful video. Don't forget to include those secondary sources as well. All of these lessons can be scaffolded to include printed handouts or clues for students in need of more assistance, or they can be extended by requiring more advanced students to locate and analyze their own resources for the assignment. These type of activities are sure to promote more active engagement in social studies. Here are some helpful websites with resources and tools to support 8th grade social studies teachers. As all of us educators have discovered, it truly does take a village when it comes to providing the best educational opportunities for our students. Thank you for following along with my presentation on the best practices for social studies instruction. Please see the references below.